This is A Geek Leader.
Welcome to episode 139 of Geek Leader Podcast. I'm your host, John Rhonda.
And this episode is sponsored by Splashtop. Splashtop is the preferred remote access and remote support software. There are three main products that you can choose from depending on who you are and what you need. Splashtop Business Access for individuals and small teams. That's one of the products that I use personally and love it. Splashtop Remote Support for IT and MSPs. We also use that at our company, and it's a fantastic solution. And Splashtop SOS for support and help desk teams. Splashtop uses robust security measures, keeping your data safe and protecting all of your employees and computers that you are accessing. And you can start a free trial today, and you'll see why so many users are leaving other remote access softwares and switching to Splashtop, because you get all the same features, better performance at a fraction of the cost. And if you don't believe it, you should at least try it out. Get a free trial plus 20% off for any listeners to A Geek Leader. Just go to ageekleader.com/splashtop. Again, I've been using this software for 7 years, and from a personal standpoint and from the professional standpoint, it is fantastic. I love using it with my iPad, with my iPhone, being able to remote into Windows and Mac machines. It's a great solution, highly recommended. For 20% off and a free trial, go to ageekleader.com/splashtop. All right, Geek Leaders, today on the show, we've got Rhonda Scharf, and she's the author of a book that I'm holding in my hand called Alexa is Stealing Your Job. Rhonda, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much for having me.
Hey, to set some context for the audience and kind of let them know kind of where you're coming from, can you tell us a little bit about kind of your past or how you got to where you are today, and also why you decided to write this book?
All right. Like many of you, we end up in our jobs kind of accidentally, and I'm probably older than a lot of you. So I ended up working in a real estate office on administration, and I moved to IT in the late 80s when computers were just getting started. And I had a natural understanding. The only IT degree you could get back then was computer science, and that wasn't what I was doing, right? And so the only, you learned by trial and fire. So for whatever reason, I understood computers well. I understood how they were to, make sense and make our life a whole lot easier. And I would be the one that people would call and say, "Help me, Rhonda." And everyone thought that they were the only one that said that. So I have a natural ability to explain that. So back 26 years ago, I started my own training and consulting company called On the Right Track Training Consulting. And I started as an IT instructor. So I showed people how to use their computers. This was back before Windows, back in the DOS days. And it just evolved from there. And since, 1993, I've been a speaker and trainer. My specialties are not specifically IT, but they're efficiency and effectiveness. So I help organizations run their companies faster, smoother, more profitable. People, run their job the same way. And I was getting a lot of questions from my training and speaking audiences, kind of like, so how is AI going to have an impact on us? How is it going to make a difference to our job? And then one day I flippantly threw out the statement, well, Alexa's going to steal your job. And it just kind of built from there. And so I have been talking about AI for quite a few years, mostly just fairly broad. But now as we get a whole lot deeper, we're getting way more specific and some real good examples. So that's kind of the background of where it all came from.
So did the song come from you, Help Me Rhonda, or vice versa?
Beach Boys. I was born in 1965, and that was the year that song came out. And my mom likes to tell me that I was not named for that song, but I completely disagree with her.
Yeah, I hear you there. All right. Well, so getting into artificial intelligence, and I guess there's definitely a clear correlation between talking about efficiency and effectiveness and AI. And when I hear AI, sometimes the buzzword, I always go back to thinking about Terminator,
Yeah,
and,
absolutely.
Sentient AI, which is a little bit different than just the machine learning that we have today.
Yes, yeah. And I get those as well, is that people are, really panicky about how it's going to be like HAL from A Space Odyssey, and it's just going to completely take over. And, there is definitely that concern. There's no question. I'm pretty sure that's not going to happen.
Yeah. If so, it won't be in my lifetime.
No, exactly. Yeah.
So what is the state of AI when it comes to efficiency, effectiveness, taking people's jobs? Is it happening right now, or is it going to be happening soon, or what should we be thinking about?
It's happening right now. There's a lot of, and it's funny when I say AI, obviously your audience knows what it means, but a lot of people go like, what is AI? They don't even know. So they're completely naive to how much is out in the world. I mean, everybody knows Alexa and Google and Siri and Cortana and, all of her sisters, that sort of stuff. But the reality is most people are completely naive that when they were on a website today and there was a chat bot, that they weren't actually talking to a real person. They were talking to a chatbot, or the person that they play an online game with, they think is a real person and it's not a real person, or, that sort of stuff. So people are very naive with that. Now, when it comes to taking their jobs, those jobs are being taken. I mean, automation has been going on, since the 50s. There's no question that automation has been taking jobs, but the automation now people just think is computers, when in reality, it's not just computers taking their jobs. And I just think people are kind of walking around with their blinders on and not really aware of it. Now, that being said, by 2020, which of course is a hiccup away, AI is going to be in a position of creating more jobs than it has taken away. So the last bunch of years have seen jobs being eliminated because of AI, people unaware of that. Whereas now, as we move to the future, there's going to be a whole lot new job set created. Now, that's good for your listenership. It's not necessarily good for the person at the grocery store that lost their job to AI.
Right, because, and I hear people, and I think it was a Twitter thing a while back where it was like learn to code. It was kind of a derogatory statement because they were trying to get people to just shift jobs. But it's not that easy. It's not like
No, it's not.
You can't just go from being a coal miner to being, a software developer, overnight. It takes time, effort, and sometimes people don't want to put in that energy, or maybe they feel like they're not capable.
Yeah. There's a bazillion reasons. I mean, if you're 21, okay, you've got time. But if you're 61, you really don't. And so that scares the heck out of people, right? And yes, there's going to be a lot of jobs, but they're not, you're right, for the coal miner necessarily.
Yeah. And there's actually several quotes in your book that I really like. And one thing is not really a quote, but it's more of a chart. You have this big chart kind of in the middle of your book that has all these jobs and what the probability that they're going to be going away is. And some of them were pretty obvious just straight away. At least I thought so, like data entry clerk. Yeah, of course, But
I don't even think that exists now. Yeah.
Yeah. But then you get into some of them, and it's like, restaurant cook.
Yeah.
That's, some of these are kind of like shocking. I always think of like a chef as being kind of a creative thing, and it's sort of being difficult to get rid of the creative thing. But I guess we're there.
Well, and I think there's different degrees of that. So you can look at the restaurant cook and a chef as different things. So one is much more of an artist, and the other is task-based. So if you think restaurant cook, let's just say any fast food, that's, they don't really get a lot of latitude in how they're cooking their Big Macs. So they're really much more of a cook. And yes, all of that can be automated, right? And so that chart is from a couple gentlemen from Oxford University. It's just fascinating. It talks about the percentage of the role that can be automated or computerized or AI'd. If I know AI is not a verb yet, but it's about to be. And so it really is fascinating on what percentage of each job, each profession, has the ability to be taken away. And when you're looking at some of them that are 99%, you're right. Like, I don't think there is data entry clerks anymore. I don't think that exists. But yes, all of that can go away. But when you get down to the 60%, you think, could you afford to lose right now 60% of your job? Like, what would you do? Oh, you know what? Maybe not. It gets scary when it gets into numbers that are not guaranteed you're going to lose that profession, but numbers that it's definitely going to make a massive impact to.
Yeah, for sure. And some of these on here, I had talked to some friends who were talking about automation and things, and when I refinanced my house the last time, it was like, oh, why is there a person involved? Why am I meeting with an attorney? This makes no sense. This could easily be automated. And other people are like, no, you have to have a law degree, you have to know all this stuff. It's like, no, a system can just read it and do it.
Yeah, no, you don't. Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree with you. Like,
I think it's 97% on this chart.
Yeah. We're in a process of buying a house down in Florida. It's closing in January, and we have to go in and sign papers and bring the money. And I'm like, this is stupid. I mean, I live in Canada. Why do I need to show up there? And first of all, why does there even need to be a person on the other end? It could be an automated search that makes sure that the property is clean, and like, that's very task-based. And I don't mean to be insulting to people that work in that industry, but it's very people-heavy where it doesn't need to be. It really doesn't.
Yeah, and a couple of things that did stand out. Like, I spent probably more time reading this chart and just like thinking than I did anything else, which it was just because it was so fascinating to me. Computer programmers were 48%. And automating your code is kind of one thing that we're trying to do. But what are we going to do if we automate away all of our code?
Well, absolutely. And if you think about what, where programmers are going, I mean, a big part of the programming, the coding and all that absolutely is going to be able to be done by an AI machine. Like once it understands how to code, it can sit there and do all that, right? But then the computer, there's three different sections of jobs coming forward for really those in the IT world for the most part. So there are explainers, sustainers, and I forget the third one. but basically trainers, explainers, sustainers. So trainers are going to be the ones that write the code so that the computer can start to learn. But once your AI whatever starts to learn, then it's off on its own, right? But we've got to train it to work. So for instance, if you use, let's say, traditional code writing, Control P means print, or I could do, file print. But what a trainer will do will teach my AI device that there are many ways that I can get something to print. And it's not about training me the right sequence, which is what Control P is. It's about training the device what I mean. And so I'll say, please print that, or I need a copy of that, or send that to the print. Like I'll have 50,000 different things, right? And it will learn over time what I mean. So the first time I say, please print that, and it doesn't do what I want it to do, I will have to try something else and something else and something else. So trainers will work with the devices long before they ever get in my hands. So before Alexa ever showed up on my desk, there was, I'm guessing, thousands of people that trained her how to understand the different ways we ask things. Because I can get her to turn on my TV in 14 different ways. I mean, it's not just I've learned the sequence. She's also learned the sequence of me as well. And she knows it's me and she knows my channel. And so trainers are going to be working much similar to how programmer would program a computer. They're going to train a device to understand what we mean. Sustainers are going to make sure that we don't get HAL and Space Odyssey and Terminator and all of that sort of stuff. Like they're going to make sure that they sustain the level and not go too far. And of course, there's been examples already in the Twitterverse where the public has trained chatbots to be racist.
I heard about that. It's the Microsoft chatbot, correct?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It was like crazy scary how quickly they did that. And this is Joe Public doing it, right? And so sustainers are going to make sure that those type of things don't happen. They'll be able to pull back on the learning if necessary. And then explainers are people like, say, the FAA. Like when a plane goes down, why did it do what it did? And so if you think about, we're going to have self-automated vehicles. And so if we happen to have a vehicle that does something, why did it do it? Like, why did it stop dead right here? Like, what was the reason for that? So those are going to be new jobs that I think, are going to be, certainly at the beginning, very IT heavy, understanding code, understanding learning, understanding why they're doing what they're doing.
And so when it comes to these, it's more of not like a job loss, because you mentioned that AI was actually creating more jobs. It's more of a transformation of what the jobs are. Right?
It is, yeah.
What makes this transformation different, or is it different than like the Industrial Revolution, historical transformations that we've seen where you went from, being a blacksmith to actually being a factory worker?
Yeah. I really don't think it is different at all. It's just the next evolution of it. You're right. So we've, if you go back, this is the fourth Industrial Revolution. If you go back to each one of them, every time something came forward, they said, no, it's going to get rid of jobs. And every time there's been a net job creation for it. So what we lose at each industrial revolution is we lose the lowest end of jobs. So, the factories came along and got rid of everybody doing things manually themselves, and we could do them on mass production. And then we get automation, and now we're going to get a deeper sense of automation. So it is the lower end manual repetitive jobs that are going to disappear. So I say basically, if you can write instructions on how to do something, which meaning you've done it more than once, the odds are it can be automated, it can be made artificial intelligence-ized, as I said, it's going to be a verb, and basically something else or something or someone can do it for you. And then that leaves you time to do things that can't be automated, can't be instructioned.
So how are you personally using AI to help you be more efficient and effective in your life?
Well, great question. I would love to automate everything I have. Unfortunately, not everybody in my life wants me to do that. But at the moment, we run our house very well. So we have, of course, Alexa. I mean, if I'm going to write about Alexa, I better be familiar with what she does. So we have her set up for the whole house. It's pretty much automated, which is pretty cool. In my business, I'm trying to use it. I have the chat bot on, on my site, on Facebook, all of that sort of stuff. I'm trying to use it, but I'm also trying to keep it at the same speed as my clients. So at the moment, I'm working sort of on the larger level of chatbots and getting rid of task-based things and running efficiencies in organizations a little bit more so. We're not 100% there yet. And right now, they're fairly cost prohibitive for small business. They're fine for bigger business, but for small business, they're a little bit cost prohibitive. So I'm trying to read and learn and do, and as much as I can practice and play, I'm all over it. I mean, this is pure fun for me to play with Alexa. I mean, she could be my best friend, and so I'm enjoying it. But have I, completely run my shop this way? No, because that's not the nature of my business at this point.
Yeah. I don't think we're quite there yet, but I do love the idea of automating as much as you can to be efficient. And use of tools is great, but you have to have a good system, I think, behind the tools in order to make that effective. What is the one thing that, if you are like when I'm looking at this chart, if I am somebody in these charts where I'm going to be losing more than 50% of the tasks that I have, what should I be doing? Like, what kind of career advice would you have for me? Would it be changing jobs or embracing what I have right now? What is it?
It really depends on where you're at in your life and what the percentages are in your job. But I would say for people, so look at all the stuff that can be done more than once that you can write instructions for and recognize that that's going away. And then look at what's left and say, where is your sweet spot? What is it that you do really well? Like if I take away, say 50% of your job, and let's be honest, that 50% of your job is all the task-based stuff, all the time-consuming stuff. So if I could get rid of all that little nitty-gritty stuff that gets in the way, what would you do? And do you love it? And what are you really good at it? So if you take your job, and let's say you really like doing these interviews, like that's your thing, then you could get automation to take care of setting up the interviews and prompting you with the questions that you would ask your guests, and to do the distribution and do the editing and get rid of all the stuff that takes your time so that you can focus on being a really, really good interviewer. And that's what's going to make you stand out, because AI is not going to be able to do that. So if you look at other jobs, take away all the busy work. What is it that you love and get really, really good at? Like, so one of the most important marketable skills, according to many surveys for 2020, is emotional intelligence. So that is really the connection with people, the understanding of the relationship. So if that is something you're good at, then jump all in, like both feet, and volunteer and get visibility. One of the worst things that we can do as automation is starting to take over, and I say this to all audiences that I speak to, is be invisible. Stop flying under the radar. Start joining in conversations. Start saying what your brain says. I can't believe they're doing this. We should be doing this. Instead of just saying it to yourself, say it out loud and start adding value to the conversation at work. So ignore the task stuff. It's going away. Where are you really good outside of the task stuff? Maybe you're really good at explaining why we're doing this. Maybe you're really good at looking potential risk options. Maybe you're really good at dreaming for the future. So where is your sweet spot? And focus on that.
Yeah, no, I think that's great advice, and I agree 100%. I definitely think the parts of your job that you hate doing are what's going away.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it seems like with every industrial revolution, that's what happens. We get rid of the things that we don't like doing as a society. And when I look at the things that AI is doing now, the jobs are usually that are going away completely are usually the ones with the highest turnover.
Yep. Yeah, because they're hard. And take, call center work as an example. I mean, there's lots of AI in call center work, right? If any of your listeners have ever had a call center job, you're like, oh God, no, don't make me do that. Like, it's hard. And so it's nice to get rid of that kind of stuff. People don't mind taking orders. They don't like doing the initial outbound reach, that sort of stuff. So I agree with you. I think that's part of the reason we figure out how to automate it, because we have a problem in our system. And the problem is people don't want the job. It doesn't pay well enough. There's ridiculously high turnover. It's not all that efficient. And so that's part of the reason we've got people who create solutions, because it is a problem.
Mm-hmm. So I had a guest on probably a few months ago now that we were talking about AI's use in the healthcare industry. And one of the things we were talking about was the I guess the rad tech type jobs where they're looking at imaging, and AI was taking that, and he was saying that right now they have typically a rad tech person that just supervises the AI. Whenever there's something that's the AI flags something and they say, "Whoa, this can't be right," they look at it, but they said 99% of the time it's usually correct.
Yeah.
Have you seen that in other industries?
There's definitely in medicine, there's no question. HR is another industry that's very, very similar. I mean, you post a job online. Very rarely do we do the old-fashioned, put the ad in the newspaper kind of thing. So you post an ad online, and then you've got your AI bots who go through all of those thousands of resumes, and they potentially shoot a couple of email questions to the candidate and says, okay, what about this? What about this? And they're able to narrow it down really quickly, like seriously in seconds, right? As opposed to this being someone's full-on job. So HR is very similar to the medical industry in that there's an overseer to make sure that we're all good and then take it from there. But all the menial time-consuming stuff. Yeah, education is another example. Education, one of the last places it's going to go to AI, just by the way that education is set up. But if you think about it, if we had some smart devices in the classrooms, the classroom would be able to identify, you know what, John's struggling with his 6 times tables. And whereas the teacher with 30, 40 kids in her classroom may not recognize that it's the 6s that he's struggling with, whereas the AI device listening would say, okay, here's the homework for John, here's the homework for Rhonda, here's the homework for Mike, and be very specific as well. While that doesn't exist right now, you can totally see how that's going to happen. So it's just a matter of time that our jobs are much more of the making sure that everything is okay, but the AI is really doing all that data processing.
Do you think we're going to, as a species, maybe lose some of those skills over time? That things that the AI does. Because I look back on it, it used to, we've lost a lot of arts, when it comes to just automation in general. And I don't know how to, hammer a piece of metal into a sword anymore. So,
you're right, and I never did. But you know what we're losing, and we've already been losing it for the last 20, 30 years, is the ability to spell and the ability to do math in our head. And, there's those that will argue, and I'm probably on that page, is we don't need to know how to do that anymore. But you're right. So there's always that big conversation about kids today not learning cursive writing, and, people totally get their knickers in a knot over that. And I'm a contrarian. It's just who I am. And I'm like, well, why do they need to learn how to do cursive writing? Like it's like Latin. I didn't need to learn Latin in school. I'm never going to use it. And the kids going to school in these days may never learn cursive writing. And spelling is kind of the same. I mean, at what point are we just going to move to everything that's dictation? I mean, whether it appears as type on our screen or it's somehow transmitted to our brain, why do we need to know how to spell? Because the computer knows how to spell. Why do we need to know our 14 times tables? Because you're never really going to need to have to do that manually. So a lot of those skills are disappearing, no question. And it gets people very upset. But I challenge, why do they need them?
I agree 100%. And, I just got back from a conference from LA. It was the Content Protection Summit. And I was talking to this guy about live closed captioning.
Yeah.
And I didn't know how that worked. I just kind of, his company did the World Series and they were talking about it. And I was like, so what do? You just have people in a room that just type really fast and they just type all the stuff? And he's like, no. We have, like a producer that's kind of watching what the people are putting on the screen. And we have 3 different people with headsets on and they're listening to the broadcast and then they're re-saying the broadcast into an AI that's trained on their voice. And they have special keywords that say, like for example, if the name is Gronkowski, the AI is probably not going to spell Gronkowski correctly. So we'll have a different non-English word for Gronkowski. And they'll replace the name Gronkowski with that name. And so they don't type any of the closed captioning anymore. It's all dictated.
And I'll say that at this point, they're actually a little bit behind the ball because they don't need that middle person. There is already simultaneous translation. And so I can be having a conversation with you on Skype, and you can be in the US, and I can be in China speaking Chinese, and we are going to have a one-on-one conversation, and there is not someone in the middle. There is already that simultaneous translation from language to language. So, of course, there has to be that simultaneous translation from language to type.
Yeah, that's awesome. And and I was. Do you have a Tesla? Let me just.
I wish. No, I don't.
You need to get one.
Yeah, I know.
I was just realizing. So we have one, and I was thinking about all the things that I've forgotten. So when I drive our Tesla versus driving my F-150, it's like a totally different thing. You get in the Tesla and you back out you get it. You don't crank it. You just get in and it goes. And when you get home, it just opens the garage door. And I'm starting to realize that I'm forgetting skills that I had, as a driver that I don't have anymore. And I feel like that's just one of those things that are going to be happening when it comes to more skills when AI takes over more of your job functions. But again, I think you're right. Why do we need those skills anyway?
Why do we need it? The first time I took my driver's test, I failed because I couldn't parallel park. And you think about, why do I need to parallel park? My car can do that, right? Like not when I took my test, but now it can. And there's a lot of skills, and I think people just get hung up on, well, it's a fear. I mean, there's a massive fear about AI, right? And everything it's going to do. And when they get to the skills base, whether it's math or driving or, writing or whatever it happens to be, people are afraid we're going to lose what we know. But I challenge, why do we need to know that? There's many, many more things we need to learn how to do. And maybe opening the garage door isn't one of them.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So let me ask you the Elon Musk question.
Sure.
Is there fear of AI taking over? Do we need more regulation? Is regulation where it should be? What are your thoughts and feelings on both of those topics?
Getting ethical, right? Yeah, there's a massive fear. Do we need regulation? Gosh, oh man.
It's a tough question.
You know what? My heart says no. People are good. People are but my brain goes, Rhonda, stop being an idiot. So the reality is we probably do. I mean, without going down the rabbit hole of privacy on AI, there is no regulation on privacy, and there probably should be. So not probably, there should be. And so when it comes to, do we need regulation on what AI can do? Yeah, I have no idea who needs to do that regulation or how. I would not want to be on the committee. But do we need to have some, overseer support? I think we do. And part of that is to make the general public comfortable that we're just not jumping in and not paying attention, that we really are looking at all the potential consequences, the potential repercussions of doing what we're doing. So it needs to have a little bit of oversight, and I hate saying that out loud.
No, I'm with you 100%. I'm not a political person. I definitely don't like regulation in general. Yeah. But when I look at the things that have been passed, even I don't want to get down the privacy rabbit hole, but like for GDPR, there's so many contradictory things that are in these laws because I don't think they've necessarily been thought through. One example is the right to be forgotten. But in order for someone to be forgotten, you have to document that they've requested to be forgotten. So therefore, they're in the system there. So it's kind of like I
totally still know everything about them. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. I'm Canadian, and we have CASL, which is Canadian Anti-Spam Law, which is very much like GDPR, and they've had to readjust things a few times. I mean, they started off, but it doesn't go in the direction necessarily. You need somebody to look at it.
Yeah, and I was working with a nonprofit that's in the United States, but they take donations from European folks, and they were wondering, the IRS says we have to document who donated for 7 years. We have to keep that documentation. But what if someone that's a European citizen requests to be forgotten? Now I've got conflicting laws from two different governments.
Yep.
And I don't know which one to do.
And that's really that's a perfect example of why we're going to need some, overall body oversight, because the laws in the United States and the laws in the UK and the laws in Australia may not line up. And we need to have them line up. If you take, not to throw any country under the bus right now, but Germany is really, really tough on their AI stuff. So they have very little of the artificial intelligence as far as it goes with Alexa or Echo. And even Europe is way behind where North America is on our smart speakers. And I'm willing to bet that a country like Germany that is very concerned about it is going to have very different laws than a country that is where Amazon lives,
So do you think companies that are building products today, whether they be software products or physical products, should move all in with AI, or is it more of something they should just kind of watch in the distance, or how much of a percentage should they move in there?
Oh gosh, if I was in an R&D department or something, I'd be all in on AI right now. I think that up until now, people have been watching, but there are so many big players in the game that if you're not in, they're going to gobble you right up. I mean, they're just really massively dominating the industry. And so while you can, argue service and all that sort of stuff, if I'm in an R&D department of an organization, I can no longer idly stand by and watch. We need to be jumping in in a big way, or we're going to be left behind. Like, say, take, back up, 20, 5 years ago when websites came along and people were like, I don't need a website. People know I'm in the yellow pages, whatever. And then all of a sudden the world got much smaller. And if you didn't have a website, you're crazy, right? And then the same thing was with online shopping. Like if you weren't able to do online shopping, you were going to get left behind. So AI is the same sort of next step. It's fine to watch it for a little bit, but now it's time to move or you will get left behind.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I was actually at an event I guess it was earlier this year, and they were showing how on the video standpoint, they could actually take a movie and run a movie through an AI and it would produce a 3-minute trailer.
Yeah.
And the trailer was better than the ones that the producers were putting together themselves because it was able to take from the audio, the inflections, the emotions that were being driven and create something that was more appealing to the eye than a human.
Isn't that correct? And as you saw in the book, Walt Disney has been doing that with movies. They've been using AI to create movies, Up being a perfect example. And I don't care how old you are, you cried in that movie. Mm-hmm. It had the ability, air quotes, to manipulate you. It worked perfectly. Everybody loved that movie. Yeah,
which makes me think about Disney Plus. It just rolled out. They've had 10 million plus subscribers, and I mean we've got it.
Yeah.
All the data that they're getting from what we're watching. How is that going to? I mean, AI can take all that and say, "Hey, so many people are watching this old movie. Let's do a remake, or let's combine these two characters 100%. Into a new movie and make something even better that's been out." And I just can't wait to see what they're going to get from that.
And not only that, I mean, yes, they know all of that, which is, Disney is not going away anytime soon. But just how much longer until not only the television or the movie screen knows that you're watching it, it knows where your eyes are. So if your eyes are on the princess, the princess is, because while we're watching the whole thing, our eyes are on one thing, right? Like if you're on the princess, it knows that this princess really resonates or people are crying in this exact moment. They can see when the eyes well up, that's pretty scary, yet exciting stuff.
Yeah, there was a book that I read a couple years ago called Inevitable by Kevin Kelly. He's the editor of Wired magazine. Yeah. And he talked about how he was a science fiction book about what's going to happen 30 years from now. And one of the things in that book he talked about, that news won't be a linear program that you just watch. It'll be a story, and whether you're paying close enough attention to that, it would tell by your eye tracking, and it'll know what kind of story to play next that you would be most interested in.
Isn't that crazy? Yeah.
It is. And it's kind of like Facebook today. Facebook is starting to do that.
And I tell people that all the time, and they'll say, no, that's not true. And so I'll say, okay, let's have a 5-minute conversation, and every 5 minutes we're going to say cat. Or we just keep throwing the word cat into our conversation. I say, I want you to, text me tomorrow and tell me how many cat videos you see in your feed. And they're like, oh my God. Like, yeah, it works.
Yeah. And I actually heard a story not too long ago on a different show where a guy had decided that he wanted to, he said his feed was so full of bad news and things going wrong and political stuff that he decided to only search for happy puppies and click on puppies. And then he said after about a week his feed was clean. It was all puppies and nice.
Absolutely. Yeah. The more you engage, the more you're going to see. No question.
Yeah. So that's fascinating. So what is the the big takeaway from your book, Alexa Stealing Your Job, that we haven't hit on yet that we really need to talk about?
So I think the big takeaway, yes, first of all, I love the title, so I'm happy with that for sure. But the takeaway from the book is it's not all negative, it's not all bad. If you choose to stick your head in the sand, it will be all bad. But I think that is true about anything really. And so I think that where we're at is the very same timing that I hit sort of in the late 1980s with the computers that came in. If you jump now, or you're willing to be taught, to learn, to move forward, to keep your eyes open, I think you are at a really important time, potentially in your career, where you can maximize that there's not a lot of people that know what's going on right now, and they need people who are willing to try. And so back, in the 80s, when I said, sure, I can do that, all of a sudden my, boring old career just went boom and opened up an incredible career because I was willing to say, sure, I'll give that a try. And that's really where I want people to be right now, is we're in that timing. So sure, I'll give that a try. Recognize a lot of your stuff is going away, so stop fighting and look for the areas where you can maximize your lifestyle, your life, your job, your career, your relationships, whatever, and jump in. Because I think that 10 years from now, people are going to go, oh, I should have. Sort of 10 years ago, when we had the bank crash and people said, oh, I should have bought real estate 10 years ago. Yep, you should have. And we're in the same point with your career right now. So don't move forward 10 years and go, I should have. Now's the time to do it.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. You have a quote in your book that I highlighted. It was, we have a choice: stick your head in the sand and refuse to adopt AI, or adopt quickly and fully distancing ourselves from our competition. Yeah. And I think that's absolutely right. And also, I teach part-time at Winthrop University, and I tell my students, the jobs that are going to be hot are the jobs that don't exist when you graduate.
I saw a stat just last week that said of the kids going into the first grade this year, 65% of the programs that they teach in college and university won't exist by the time they get there.
Yeah, I don't doubt that at all. And I tell my students, what I'm teaching you in computer science, 101 will not exist. 50% of it won't exist by the time you graduate. But
exactly.
The idea is to look at the things that are new and go after that. And AI is that thing.
AI is that thing.
All right. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show. I really appreciate it. It's been a lot of fun.
Thank you. Good. I enjoyed it. Thank you very much.
Special thanks to Splashtop for sponsoring this episode. And if you're looking for a new or better value for remote computer access solution, see for yourself why so many people are leaving other tools like LogMeIn or TeamViewer and switching to Splashtop. It's fast, secure, competitively priced, and to learn more and start a free trial plus an exclusive 20% discount for your first year, visit ageekleader.com/splashtop. Again, that's ageekleader.com/SPLASHTOP, Splashtop.